What's up, guys? Welcome back to the Gear Garden. This week we're talking about my personal favorite one-person backpacking tent, the Big Agnes Copper Spur HV UL1. What's up, guys? Like I said, thanks again for watching the Gear Garden. My name is Harrison McCoy. This week we're talking about my favorite one-person tent, the Big Agnes Copper Spur HV UL1. The price of this tent is a whopping $430 for a one-person tent, which I will say is kind of a lot, but it's also kind of not a lot compared to the other models of tents out there that can skyrocket well past this tent. The weight of this tent is 2 pounds and 6 ounces with everything, but it's 2 pounds and 2 ounces with just the trail weight, which is very light, considered ultra light if you ask me too. The square foot floor area of this tent is 20 square feet, which is pretty reasonable. There are bigger ones for sure, but this is a very good enough space to fit a 25-inch wide pad, 72 or 76 inches long, and you still have room on the sides to put bottles, beanies, and all the extra goods you bring in your tent. The vestibule square feet is 9 feet, which is also almost half the size of the interior of the tent. So if you're somebody who likes to keep all your gear outside of your tent, you have plenty of room to do so without getting it wet still because it's covered by the really nice rainfly. The head end of this tent is 38 inches wide, and the foot end of this tent is 28 inches wide, so it does have a tapered model, which is kind of nice because I feel like when tents have too much room, at least that's what I'm learning now, I feel like I have too much space to where I bring too much stuff. So if a tent is smaller, I will be more dialed in and more ultralight and controlled on what I'm bringing and what I'm keeping in my tent. And the color of my tent is very bright orange, so it's really nice for making videos. I want to stop this video real fast to shout out my channel sponsors. We have two, Deliciotes and Flip Fuel. The first one, Deliciotes, go to their website, deliciotes.com, and use code GearGarden10, all caps, GEARGARDEN, the number 10, and then go to flipfuel.co and go to use the code GearGarden, GEARGARDEN 20 for 20% off of a Flip Fuel. Thanks again. Some things that are notable about the Copper Spur is that the one-person tent has one vestibule, which is fairly normal, I would say. It also has one door, and that door has 2 zippers. One can go up and one can go sideways, so you don't have to use one or the other. You can use just one if you really wanted to. The tent is made of an ultralight double ripstop mixed veneer fabric, so it's very strong, it's very waterproof, it's very durable. I've tested it myself. I have some videos I can throw in here of it getting the absolute crap beat out of it from 40-mile-per-hour winds and rains, and it held up perfectly. I was actually shocked. I kind of figured it was going to cave in a lot more, and it didn't. So it's very durable, and I can say that for myself. This tent also has DAC or DAC aluminum poles. They're super lightweight. They're even lighter than my Nemo ones, so I do treat them a little more carefully because I don't want them to snap, but they're so light and they're so easy to carry. It also has really cool angle hubs that when you set it up, you can see it's supposed to be that way. If you have it upside down, the tent just won't set up the right way. It needs to be focused just like this, so the tent has that good arch. It also has a super wide broad pole at the top to give you more of those vertical walls in the tent and more room to sit up and sit around without hitting your shoulders or your head on the roof. This tent has a humongous over-the-foot pocket where I keep all of my gear that might be wet when I was out on the trail that's raining, or just things like my jacket. If I want it in an easy spot when I sit up, I can grab it, take it out, put it on, get out of my tent. This tent also has 3 pockets above your head, one up here, and then there's this side's got 2 on top of each other. So one, I'll keep my tent and every kind of bag that I have in. I keep my electronics in one, and then maybe my phone in the other, as well as a side pocket right by the door where you can keep your headlamp for easy access at night. On the head end of the tent, there is an awesome vent at the top on the outside that you can prop open or keep shut, depends on what you want. I usually keep it open even in the rain because it's over angled enough to where the rain won't whip inside, and it keeps for good airflow, less condensation in the tent, and it keeps the air fresh inside, which sometimes, you know, you can get stinky out there, so it helps a lot. I also really like the tip lock buckle features on the Rainfly and the tent itself. It's easy to clip in. The pole itself sits in there and it's all attached to one system. Super convenient, and the tent also can be set up with just the footprint. So if it's raining, or if you just want to go super ultra light and scrap the whole inside of the tent and use single wall tarp, you have that option to do the same thing, and it's super quick to set up. 4 clips and the poles, you're good to go. There is one other feature that on the tent that I do not use myself. It is a trekking pole porch where you can set up your trekking poles, pull out that tarp, and then stake them out to where you have a porch. It's not super high, high, but it's high enough to where if you do want to catch some shade and sit on the outside of your tent, you have that option, which is fairly nice. Now I want to go over some of my favorite things about this tent. I really like how weatherproof it is. Like I said, it held up in several nights of rain for me, several windy, stormy nights that I really thought that for a second the tent was going to cave in, but it did not, especially with the amount of winds that we had. I really like how light it is. It's a little over 2 pounds, which compared to my other like Nemo Dagger tent, which is technically a little over 4, it's different. It's a lot smaller. It's purpose driven. Everything in that tent, every pocket has a purpose. I don't have too much space. I don't have too many pockets. I have just enough pockets to where it makes me feel like I'm not overwhelmed and remembering where I put everything. Because when I get in my tent, I like to put everything in its place. So the fact that everything is also in arm's reach makes it way easier for me to remember where everything I have is. It's also super easy to set up. Just like a lot of tents, it's color coded on each end. There's a gray end and an orange end. The poles are also color coded gray and orange at the tips. So even if it's dark, you can still see because the silver is so shiny and the orange is so dark. So it's super simple. Some dislikes I have about this tent. The first one, which is kind of how most tents are, is the footprint cost. I can't understand why tents footprints cost so much money for how cheap it is. But at the same time, I would rather buy another footprint than buy another tent. So I'll eat the $60 to $80 that the footprint costs. Hate spending it, but it will help you keep a little more of a barrier between your tent floor and your pad. So that is worth it, I guess. And there's also cheaper alternatives like Tyvek or Nylofume, a bunch of different things you can get. So I can do other things, but I chose not to. I like to stick with the gear that comes with the tent. I also wish that the tiebacks on the door and the rainfly had clips like the rest of the tent do. This is just me being picky at this point because it is kind of difficult when you're wearing gloves or your hands are cold to wrap it up and then try and fit that big thing through that little tiny loop because it's so flush and it fits perfectly. But other than that, I don't really have any complaints about this tent. It's one of my favorite one-person backpacking tents, and I've been using it the last few hundred miles on backpacking trips, and I love it. And that's all for this week's video, guys. Again, I want to thank my sponsors, Delissy Oats and Flip Fuel. Delissy Oats code is GearGarden10. Flip Fuel's code is GearGarden20 for a 10 and a 20% discount. And I also want to thank every other gear company that sent me gear. I'll try to list all of them down below in the description so you can also check out the gear that I love and own. Thanks again for watching, guys. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe, send this video to your friends, and check out the rest of them. See you next time.